Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. This time we've got a great battle between Ondjage's Warriors of Chaos against Tsukuyo-Desu's Dwarfs from the Dogs of War tournament, hosted by Ninja Hund. I am switching the format up a little bit, so do let me know what you think down below in the comments, but apart from that, as always, we're going to start with a conversation about composition and deployment. Alright, so more or less right away you'll notice the Dwarfs in this battle have taken a very aggressive stance with a lot of Vanguard deployment, while the Warriors of Chaos are a little bit more reserved, let's call it. So let's start with a conversation about the Warriors of Chaos. They are led by Sathariel, the Everwatcher. He does have with him Plague of Rust as well as Final Transmutation, a Scroll of Shielding, and a Scroll of Power. Back here is the main Warriors of Chaos army. The rest of it, rather, we've got these Chaos Warriors with great weapons, 3 units right in the middle here, while on either flank we do have the Chaos Marauders with great weapons. These guys are slightly less armored, or significantly less armored, I should say, but still armor-piercing, able to make sort of waste of some Dwarven units that are heavily armor-piercing. So I think the hope was just to get an initial engagement and then get in some flanking maneuvers with these Marauders, maybe some rear charges just to get some support and morale damage in. Then, meanwhile, in the trees over here, or rather just outside the trees, we do have this Hell Cannon already eager to start firing away, while the Demon Spew, as well as the Swords of Chaos and this unit of Chaos Knights are tucked away in here, able to push forward for some flanking maneuvers, get some side or rear charges in, or of course, protect the Hell Cannon if necessary. And finally, we have all the way up front here, the Aspiring Champions on top of this hill, there to get some initial scouting done, I believe, just to make sure that the enemy composition is clear right from the get-go and able to pull back into some safety if necessary afterwards. But of course, the Dwarfs did something a little clever as well. We do have the Rune Lord in command over here, not bringing any runes, so a bit of a bad idea there, and most of the army is actually Vanguard deployed, which is a good call on this battlefield because this hill is extremely important when fighting on this battlefield. So let's take a look at their composition. We've got these miners with blasting charges, a pair on either side, Ekron's miners, also a unit of miners with blasting charges, as well as Norgrimling's Ironbreakers in the center. So a little bit stronger in the center, and all of these units have blasting charges they'll be able to throw right from the beginning, while right behind them we do have 2 units of Rangers with great weapons on either flank, as well as this unit of Ulthar's Raiders. All of these guys are armor-piercing both in melee and in range. They're all right in melee, so if push comes to shove, they'll be okay if lines do engage and they have to dive in as well. But more importantly, they do have the stalk ability, so they would have all been hidden had it not been for this unit of Aspiring Champions. So good call there with its Vanguard deployed force, and all the way back here we do have the units that couldn't Vanguard deploy. We also have the Dragonback Slayers, we've got the Peak Gate Guard, who are Hammerers with armor sundering capability, so they'll do a lot of work when they get into melee. And finally, the Gyrocopters with Brimstone Guns, a pair of these guys able to take care of any Shaggots or any other enemy large units that are on the field. Unfortunately, not too many of those here today. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at how this battle breaks down. Right away, you'll see the Aspiring Champions over here actually pushing in to the Rangers with great weapons, trying to take care of some of that range support from the get-go, I guess, but then seeing exactly the size of that range contingent and then deciding better against it, and also maybe noticing that these Gyrocopters with their Brimstone Guns are pushing in. So you'll see these guys are taking a lot of damage, these Aspiring Champions, getting these axes chucked at them. They're going to take a lot of hurt. They're turning their backs to that range support as well, so their shields aren't effective, of course. They're going to eat a lot of damage. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see Norgrimling's Ironbreakers take a square hit from the Hell Cannon, a good shot right there, dropping their health by about a fifth, so not a bad call at all, targeting the most threatening of frontline units, because of course the Peak Gate Guard are too far away to be hit by the Hell Cannon, so not a bad call at all, focusing down on Norgrimling's Ironbreakers. Meanwhile, you'll see also Sathariel, the Everwatcher, is pulling back, not able to stick around up front there, a very dangerous situation to get stuck in, and meanwhile these Aspiring Champions are just falling apart, taking a lot of damage there, eating a beating, and dropping their health by about a quarter from the get-go there, and the Hell Cannon continues to fire away, trying to get some damage done before lines have to meet, and these Gyrocopters with Brimstone Guns now deciding that they have to get involved with the Hell Cannon, because that Hell Cannon can do a lot of hurt. You'll see the Demon Spew as well as these cavalry units are pushing forward to get involved, while the rest of the Warriors of Chaos as well pushing forward to get involved. At this point, it must have been pretty clear to the Warriors of Chaos that they can't really stay back. They don't have any ranged units available to them to take care of these Gyrocopters with Brimstone Guns, so they have to very quickly push in, take care of the ground forces that the Dwarfs have brought to bear, and then the Gyrocopters will be forced to surrender. So very tight spot for the Warriors of Chaos since they don't actually have any anti-air capabilities, more or less. The Hell Cannon is much better off targeting some of these ground units to try and get some damage done, as much damage done as possible before lines meet. And at this point, the Gyrocopters with Brimstone Guns do decide to get a bit more intimate with the Hell Cannon. They decide to dive into melee, and that's an absolutely perfect call, because by diving into melee, it's actually going to prevent the Hell Cannon from firing away, but the Warriors of Chaos are very quick to respond. The Demon Spew do get pulled back right away to try and shut down the Gyrocopters to make sure they're not able to get too much work done. And meanwhile, you'll see the front over here. Sathariel is trying to get involved, diving in past all of these blasting charges, not giving a damn about these miners, focusing on these rangers with great weapons, wanting to shut down that range support before it does too much work. Meanwhile, on the left flank, the aspiring champions as well decide to dive into these miners with blasting charges because the Gyrocopters are too busy now up front dealing with the Hell Cannon or trying to chase down some of these Chaos Knights. And meanwhile, the rest of the Warriors of Chaos are pushing forward to form up and potentially get some flanking done as well if the opportunity presents itself. And you'll see these Chaos Knights are pushing forward, but the Peak Gate Guard are up there, so they do have to be very careful. The Slayers are up there as well, the Dragonback Slayers, so they have to be very careful of this situation. And Sathariel here getting very involved in the front line, targeting Norgrimling's Ironbreakers next because, of course, that's a very dangerous unit. And you'll see over here, as the Swords of Chaos decide to avoid an engagement with the Peak Gate Guard, they actually activate the Apocalyptic Charge, and now would be a great idea to push forward and get those chargers in, but unfortunately the Warriors of Chaos are just a little too hesitant in that regard. Meanwhile, all the way back here, you'll see while the Hell Cannon is still engaged in melee, the Demon Spew are able to dive in and cause a decent amount of damage to the Gyrocopters with their Brimstone guns, doing a lot of work there, making sure these guys aren't really getting any hurt through, and trying to break them before they can shut the Hell Cannon down more permanently. Meanwhile, you'll see in the center here, Sathariel the Everwatcher does get hit by, well, he gets marked by Ulthar and a lot of focus fire there, dropping his health instantaneously. Look at that. Almost at half health already. All of those axes coming flying in. He's getting fully surrounded. He needs to get the hell out of there, and he's doing just that. His Chaos Marauders dive in to try and prevent that full surround from going on. Meanwhile, up front here, you'll see these miners with blasting charges, and Ekron's miners are tossing their blasting charges, making sure that these Warriors of Chaos, these Chaos Warriors rather, eat a lot of hurt before they're actually able to engage. They've eaten a lot of damage. These guys are about at half health. These guys have dropped by about a quarter, and now they finally get their charges in, while on the right flank over here, you'll see the miners with blasting charges have been more or less taken care of by 2 units of Chaos Marauders with their great weapons. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see Sathariel the Everwatcher still in a very precarious situation, while all the way to the left flank, the Chaos Marauders with great weapons quickly being taken care of by the Peak Gate Guard. Maybe a slightly there were better places the Peak Gate Guard could have been. They should have been pushed forward to a more central engagement because, again, the Chaos Marauders with great weapons aren't really that heavily armored, yet they're still armor piercing, so the armor sundering is wasted on them, the heavy armor piercing is wasted on them, so the Peak Gate Guard could have been used could have been much more valuable elsewhere. Meanwhile, you'll see in the main engagement over here, the axes from these rangers with great weapons come flying in, trying to cause as much damage as possible, and these Chaos Warriors with great weapons in the center, they're falling apart, absolutely devastated by all of that range support, but the Swords of Chaos do dive in to shut these 3 units of range support down in one fell swoop. Meanwhile, you'll notice the Hell Cannon is back to firing away as these Gyrocopters with Brimstone guns were frightened off by the Demon Spew, and now the Demon Spew are able to return to the front line over here, get involved in this central engagement, and you'll see here Sathariel once again getting very adventurous, but the Gyrocopters with Brimstone gun trying to provide some support while the Hell Cannon is getting some damage into the Peak Gate Guard over here, causing a decent amount of hurt, making sure that this very threatening unit is taken care of. And you'll see the Demon Spew continues to push forward, and unfortunately this gives enough time for the Gyrocopters with Brimstone guns to push in and once more engage the Hell Cannon. So maybe a bit of a bad call there, pushing the Demon Spew up front, allowing the Hell Cannon to once again be hit by these Gyrocopters in a very clever move to shut down that artillery support. Meanwhile, over here you'll see we do have in just a second final transmutation going down, trying to shut down these Rangers and Ulthar's Raiders once and for all to make sure they leave the field and begin to rout by that extra damage that's being dealt right now. So you'll see they do begin to rout, so there goes all of that range support. Meanwhile, it really is a matter of cleanup and making sure that these Peak Gate Guard aren't able to get too much work done. They're a very dangerous unit, and you'll see the Demon Spew here for a moment decide to get engaged and then realize it would be much better not to do so as the Swords of Chaos come diving in, tossing these Hammerers aside, not giving a damn about their strengths and their capabilities. Meanwhile, Sathariel the Everwatcher does pop in as well, activates the Scroll of Shielding, and he is also under the influence of the Guardian trait that the Swords of Chaos have, so he has a lot of damage resistance right now between his Scroll of Shielding and the Guardian trait of the Swords of Chaos. So very good move there, and you'll see now a full surround going down, just trying to shut down the Peak Gate Guard there. They are the most threatening unit left on the field. Meanwhile, the Rune Lord here also being surrounded, trying to get a decent amount of damage done there. He's able to fight, he's able to survive, he's very heavily armored, so that armor-piercing damage of these Chaos Marauders with great weapons is going to do a lot of work, while the Aspiring Champions not armor-piercing, so they're not able to do anything to the Rune Lord, but once he's fully surrounded, he's going to start falling apart. Meanwhile, back here, you'll see these Chaos Knights being hit by some blasting charges, but it's all for naught, really, as the Peak Gate Guard have very quickly given up. You'll see they're running away, and meanwhile, back here as well, you'll see the Norgrimling's Ironbreaker's fully surrounded by some of these Chaos Warriors with great weapons, very quickly being taken care of. These miners might try to dive back in and get some damage in. You'll see a couple of blasting charges coming in from Ekron's miners to do a little bit of hurt, but that's just far too little, far too late. Nothing to be done here, nothing to be said, as Norgrimling's Ironbreakers do fall apart, the Rune Lord falls apart, all of these units do start to give up, and they run back to the mountains from whence they came. A Pyrrhic victory, but a solid one nonetheless. Now, the battle had some very adventurous dwarves who tried to take the high ground nice and early, but were unable to take advantage of the situation. The gyrocopters with brimstone guns didn't have any large enemy units to target, for the most part, and decided to get stuck into melee far too much. They should have stayed in the air, focused down on the Swords of Chaos and the Chaos Knights to get full value for their money. I do have to say, though, despite some good work keeping the Hell Cannon safe early on, it was eventually lost to one such melee-eager unit of gyrocopters, getting only 19 kills for a very high cost. So overall, well done using a unit of gyrocopters with brimstone guns in melee to shut down that artillery support, but they could have been used a little bit better overall. Without proper rune support as well, especially on a relatively weak front line, the dwarves were in a very tight spot right from the get-go, and were pretty quick to fall apart. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always nice to see such great battles from the community highlighted. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.